A debate showdown tonight as both presidential candidates and both candidates running to be the next governor in Washington face off for the first time.
Tonight's presidential debate was fiery as former President Trump and Vice President Kamala Harris sparred over the economy, immigration, abortion, and the January 6th insurrection.
The governor's debate just as heated, with Democrat Bob Ferguson and Republican Dave Reichert at times talking over each other while talking about public safety and crime in Washington state. Thank you for watching King 5 News at 9. I'm Jessica Janner Castro.
I'm Steve Solis. Joining us tonight are King 5 political analysts. To my right is former Washington Governor Gary Locke.
And former Washington Attorney General Rob McKenna is joining us virtually. And Rob, let's start with you. What are some of your biggest takeaways tonight from the governor's debate?
Well, look, I thought they both did a good job. In contrast to the presidential debate, I think they were more specific more often about what their plans are. Obviously, it was testy at the beginning. You could kind of see the adrenaline, almost, practically see it pumping through their veins because they were both really amped up. But they calmed down, and they weren't speaking over each other after the first few minutes, and they both got to make their points. So I thought it was a good debate, and I thought the moderators did a nice job.
All right, Gary?
Well, it was very clear that Rob Ferguson was much more polished, articulate, demonstrated, and emphasized the point that he's been traveling the state, meeting with people of all different communities and different groups and different backgrounds. Very light on the specifics. And Dave Reichert was really trying to hammer away on public safety. He looked a little bit uncomfortable and stumbling at times, and even his posture of folding his hands across his chest. But Mr. Ferguson also hurt himself a little bit by arguing with the moderators and really insisting on making comments beyond the rules. And I felt that the moderators let the debate get a little bit out of hand and at the very beginning, but then they settled down. But it was very good contrast between the two.
One of the things, really the first time we saw fireworks in this conversation tonight was when we talked about public safety, and we heard both parties go after each other. How do you think they fared? Let's start with you, Gary. How do you think they actually fared in presenting Washington voters with a plan for public safety?
Well, Mr. Ferguson offered a very specific. He said he wants to spend $100 million for added law enforcement, but then never answered the question how he's going to pay for it, given the fact that they're expecting and forecasting a deficit, a lack of sufficient funds just to implement and carry out current programs. He also said he wants to lower the gas tax, but he also supports the climate bill that was enacted. So there was some inconsistency. Dave Reichert, on the other hand, simply said that crime has gone up and that we need to address the homelessness issue because a lot of it is drug-related or caused by mental illness and causing prices to go up as well. But he wasn't really very specific on what he was going to do to lower crime and to even address the homelessness issue.
You may have already answered this, Gary, but let me ask you again, because one of the big issues was also homelessness and affordable housing. The candidates did somewhat seem to agree on those topics, that they were issues here for Washington that need to be fixed. But who do you think had the stronger answer?
Well, obviously it's a problem that's persisted for many, many years and only getting worse. I think both sides, both individuals demonstrated their concern about it, a little bit vague on concrete solutions other than Mr. Ferguson's $100 million for extra police. But I think they both conveyed their concern and that crime and homelessness would be top priorities.
Rob, let me ask you that same question. Who do you think was stronger on homelessness and affordable housing?
I don't think either of them was terribly strong because, as Gary pointed out, they really lacked in specifics for their plans. But they did both commit to work on the issue. They both recognize it's a serious problem. Unfortunately, Bob spent a good part of his time trying to not answering the question, but attacking Dave instead, which was kind of a pattern throughout the debate. But Bob did say he wants to build 1 million units of affordable housing using public-private partnerships. It isn't clear why the government should be building affordable housing, even in partnership with the private sector, instead of just making it easier for the private sector to build. But that's not a point that Dave really made either. So I didn't think it was a particularly strong question and answer exchange for either of them in that debate.
Okay.
So Initiative 2117, that came up. We knew that was going to be an issue. They both stated how they stand on that issue. Do you think that each candidate made a good enough effort, not just to tell the public where they stand, but also to tell them why they feel the way they do?
Well, I thought both did a very good job. Mr. Ferguson talked about the benefits of that carbon tax and the need to switch to a clean economy, and how a clean economy actually creates more jobs. But Dave Reichert was also very accurate and pointed out the weakness of that legislation, because the governor's office and the leaders of Olympia said that passage of this legislation would lead to maybe just pennies increase in the gas tax. And in fact, people were just surprised that it jumped so high, over 25 cents in some cases, and even higher at some points. And so there's a lack of trust sometimes in our government officials when they say, well, trust us, we're going to pass this, it's really not going to hurt you, it's going to help you, and then the opposite occurs. And so it may affect some of the other initiatives that are on the ballot when they say, well, if you pass this initiative to get rid of this tax or that tax, it's going to really decimate state government. And so I think the voters are a little bit concerned that Olympia is not really being truthful, or they're exaggerating the consequences, either for or against the various legislation.
Rob, I'll let you answer that quickly, and if you don't have much to add to Gary's comment, then I'll ask you a final question.
Well, I'm sorry that Bob used his answer to try to pivot to another Donald Trump-related attack on Dave, instead of addressing the question, which even the moderator noted, and Gary just noted as well, was about the increase in gas prices being much higher than what was advertised in advance. So that was disappointing. This is a good issue for Dave because people are unhappy about gas prices, and I thought Bob did as good a job as he could, considering that he needs to support the Climate Commitment Act and wants to.
And Rob, I'll end with this question, and I'll ask Gary this question as well. But TV, when we have a TV debate, it offers us an opportunity to see these candidates in a very different forum. It allows us to see their mannerisms, how they react with each other. Who do you think came out on top today? Is there anything that you think will influence voters?
It's sort of apples and oranges. As Dave said at the end of the debate, he's not a debater. He's a cop. He's a former congressman, but he's not a debater. Bob is a lawyer. He is a good debater, and I think that showed in the debate. But I think what it was good about the debate is that, keeping in mind, Gary and I both know these gentlemen quite well. I think you really saw who they are. You saw who Bob is. He's aggressive. He's ambitious. He's a lawyer, a good debater. Dave is a cop. Plain spoken, not always the most eloquent, but he gets his points across. So I thought they were both very authentic, and I didn't think either of them came across as being false or affected in any way, really. Again, I thought it was a good debate, even though, as we've said, at times they were short on specifics, and it was unfortunate that they got off to a little bit of a rough start.
Gary, how do you feel? Anyone come out on top, or anyone more likable?
Well, I think each candidate reinforce their image and their standing among their core supporters. They're very different. Obviously, Mr. Ferguson is a very polished, articulate lawyer, and his answers were very crisp. He emphasized that he's traveled the state, met with people, he's taken on the Trump administration and won. Of course, his entire campaign is to portray and characterize Dave Reichert as being an extremist and being a devout follower of Mr. Trump, who's not very popular in the state of Washington. Dave Reichert, on the other hand, was emphasizing his humble background and his rise through almost a tumultuous family situation, but also really tried to just say he's a everyday guy. And that will appeal to many voters in the state of Washington, that they could see him. He may not be very articulate, but they could see him. But again, Mr. Ferguson was very polished, much more specific, and really presented himself very, very well. So I think both sides came across, they should be very happy with the way they performed.
Okay. Gary Locke, Ron McKenna, thank you both for your insight. We appreciate it. If you like full debate recap as well as a breakdown on each candidate and where they stand on the top issues, Text the word debate to 206-448-4545. We will send you a link. Our coverage continues coming up in the next half hour.